Alright, we're here now with the next game. This is the finals at our Kearney location. Our Kearney location had a really excellent turnout. One of the largest, actually the largest limited event that Kearney, Game on Kearney has had. And we filled every chair. We had to go buy more chairs to get more people to come.
It was quite interesting going outside to smoke and watching 3 people come back from Office Max with chairs.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was very, very, very loud in the store, and it was pretty crazy and a lot of fun. It also worked out because both these guys got lots and lots of packs for prizes, so it always helps.
Yeah, the more people is always better, the more chances for prizes, and obviously with the new DCI changes, it also means the more chances for points.
Yeah. I really like the new Planeswalker points change.
See, it's really rough though, because there's goods and bads to it, so there's no really like or dislike for me, because I like parts of it and I hate parts of it. So
my biggest thing was now I can actually play in events and not worry about my standard rating going to crap, because I was rated like ridiculously high in the state because my points were so high. But if I would play in a smaller Friday Night Magic events against people that were 300 points, 350, sometimes 400 points less than me, and one game loss would be the equivalent of 3 tournaments worth of wins, which was just ridiculous for me.
So here we've got the guy on the left playing green-white.
Yeah, the guy. We should probably introduce our players. The person on the left is James Mitnick. He is from McCook, and he is running a green-white, more of a smaller style deck, kind of a weenie style. And the person on the right is Tien from Kearney, and he's playing a black-white vampire demon control style deck.
And it looks like, he's been playing Vec Barasp and the 2/1 first striking flyer. He's kind of going on the aggro here. He's going up against a 3/1 lifelink now, and it's that card's really good against the aggro decks. I mean, you just walk, trade with your dude, gain 3 life. Pretty much just fog their entire turn while killing a dude.
Mm-hmm. Yep, putting him at 19 life, and James going with another guy here. And I can't quite tell which one that one is.
I believe that is the 2/2 that buffs humans.
Okay.
When it attacks or blocks. And here Tien is looking at his hand, and he plays one of the best cards unlimited in this set, the
Bloodkeeper.
Bloodkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
The Bloodkeeper makes 2/2s, and then when you flip him, it becomes a 5/5 that buffs vampires.
Yep, and it's 1 block to flip, but you have to control 5 or more vampires to do it. So, for the most part, he can pretty much just wreck face by making dudes every turn and swinging out. But if you need that last touch of damage to be a 5/5 flying, he's pretty wicked.
Yeah.
Was that one of those that you got during your limited pool?
Yes, that was my limited McCook. I got that and the Phyrexian Arena on a stick. I don't actually know what it's called, but
yeah.
Yes, but he's very good. I never flipped him actually in my entire sealed at McCook, but I did make 6/6s every turn with my green buff, which was kind of entertaining.
Yep. So right here, James put on the aura where it gives a +1/+1 for each creature in his graveyard. Tien quickly blocks and trades with his Bloodkeeper, and casts a spell here to reanimate his guy.
Yeah, it's a very good block. I mean, you don't want something getting out of control with an enchantment when you have limited removal. The limited removal comes into a big issue where you've got to make all your blocks matter.
Mm-hmm. Especially seeing the Liliana in his hand. He wants to keep the board pretty stabilized so he can get full value out of her.
Yeah, making him sack a 1/1 is not really, the most impressive of a Liliana sack.
Mm-hmm. But what's nice, the biggest thing about Planeswalkers is they can be just extremely efficient and never die, or you can play them when you don't have board position and just lose.
Yeah, you can cast a Gideon and he'll die the next turn when they all attack him, or you can cast a Gideon, blow up their creature, and then he never dies and wins you the game.
That's why.
And here, Tien is making a 2/2 at the end of turn. He's untapping, and that's a very good time to make a 2/2. I mean, you want to make sure that in response you you always have an in response for something if something happens. I mean, there could be millions of different things that can happen, and it makes a big difference waiting until like they attack and you can make a guy block, or at the end of turn you make a creature.
Yeah, you always want to make your opponent overextend and never yourself. You want to remain in control and have board position. That's one of the biggest things when playing it, whether in constructed or limited format.
And here he plays Liliana, makes him sack, and that's great value from Liliana. He gets board position that's ridiculous, and he has a Liliana that's stable on the field that I really doubt James will be able to take care of. And here he plays the 1/4 that, when it comes into play, it untaps all your creatures. And that creature actually blew me out a few times, and not because it untapped all the creatures, but because they buffed it.
Yeah, I saw quite a few games where they would swing out, leaving themselves open, and people would then swing with some of their smaller guys, thinking that they had the opportunity to, and they just completely untapped and wrecked their board. It's really solid and limited. It should be, in drafting, it should be taken very high, probably rather like 4th pick,
it
sometimes
on your
even
deck,
up.
But and here he tributes to Hungers him, and he knows he has Liliana to make him discard his last card, and he just scoops. I mean, it's really hard to come back at that point. You have no creatures in play, you have no cards in your hand, and they have that Bloodkeeper spitting out 2/2s every turn and a Liliana to make sure you never get a creature.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So as a sideboard, I think we'll ask you, what do you think some of the strongest archetypes are in limited for Innistrad right now?
Limited Innistrad, I mean, obviously it's going to take some playtests to get it all figured out, but I think some of the biggest ones, I mean, it's going to be white-red aggro, which is going to be really big. I mean, the obvious archetypes are going to be like human, werewolves, and stuff like that, but I just think that the problem you're going to have is, especially with drafting a new format, everybody's going to be going for what's obvious. And it's going to be really hard to get that archetype really pinned down for when you're drafting and stuff like that. So you kind of move into one of those things where it's like, all right, well, what's the second archetype that people aren't going to be drafting as much and you can pretty much guaranteed get into? Mm-hmm. So you're going to have your human werewolves, which is kind of white-red. You're going to have
and green-red.
Green-red, which is kind of the same concept. You're going to have like a blue-black mill yourself type of deck with recursion.
Yep, lots of reanimator style, bring guys from the graveyard as well as exile them to bring them out.
And the nice thing about this this format with blue, I mean, if you go the mill style with milling yourself for the big creatures that you exile creatures out of your graveyard, I mean that's a great idea because you can use your stuff to mill yourself, and then when it becomes useless to you, you start milling them. It's one of those things where you're not necessarily milling any player out, but you're kind of using it to its full advantage at the time, which I really like. Mm-hmm. The cards that just mill, target opponent 10 cards, I mean, they're fun if you win with them, but they don't really have much use. And in this limited format, any mill card has its own uses in the blue-black deck, or even, any straight blue deck, and it makes it really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, in my opinion, I think probably blue-black's one of the strongest ones, and for a little while will probably be one of the most underdrafted, just because there's a good, in red and green, there's a good amount of beefy creatures for good mana cost, but being able to actually handle them and control them out as well as get consistent draw, blue-black, has the cards that let you at instant speed look at the top 4, pick a card, put the rest in the graveyard, which will give you great outlets to sacrifice as you cast a creature to exile creatures to get really good value. They have 3-drop 4/5s or 4-drop 4/5s.
There's a bunch of them. I mean, there's the 2 blue and 1 for the 3/4 flyer that all you got to do is exile a creature. I mean, that's a great mana efficient spell. You exile a card that you're not going to use anymore to make a 3/4 flyer for 3. There's very few cards in Magic that are that efficient. Mm-hmm. And then you go into the 4 mana 5/6, I believe it is, that you exile 2 creatures. You go into Scab Ruinator, which, I mean, obviously if you open, you're playing. The problem with the limited format, I mean, obviously you're going to make your first pick based on the best card in the pack, and you're going to have to go from there. I mean, obviously you can get cut from the archetype that you try to go in, and you have to move into another one. We'll see after we draft a little bit how much your first few picks actually matter. I think with the limited amount of bombs there are, which, I mean, there are a lot of bombs, don't get me wrong, but comparatively to the other sets, I don't think there's as much.
Yeah. All right, looking back at the game, James cast the Pumpable Wolf as well as a Mentor of the Meek, and Tien just dropped the 2/1 first strike. Right here, what I believe James should have done before cast any spells should have been just plain swing. So he could have at least been able to threaten to pump his guy, so his guy wouldn't block. Yeah. And he didn't have to waste his one spell. His Prey Upon spell.
Yeah, it gets into the situation where, I mean, what he did was fine because he got in for 4 damage, but you can also not waste that spell, attack for 2. He has the choice to block or not. I mean, you have the option to pump at that point, so it makes it really hard for him to block. You get in for 2, you do your thing, saving back your removal spell that are so needed in this format.
Yeah, and especially since Tien just dropped the Bloodkeeper, which from the previous game just wrecked house. And James has big enough guys that with the Prey Upon, he should have been able to handle it, as well as even if he was only running 2/2s, he has free opportunity to swing with those to threaten a Prey Upon with another creature.
And another mistake, I mean, he didn't attack again. He could have attacked with his 2/2 wolf and got in for 2, leaving back that mana to pump. If Tien blocks, he kills the Bloodkeeper. If he doesn't block, he gets in for 2. It's just those little things where, you know, that little damage can actually really matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it goes from being, you know, late game where they're sitting at, instead of 18 life, they're sitting at 9 life, and that really, really does make a big difference.
Yeah, and Tien plays the 2/2 that I believe morphs into the 5/4 trample when another creature dies.
And here, looks like he's thinking quite hard.
Yeah, I think James is taking his time thinking here.
Mm-hmm. Looking at Tien's hand, if he'll show us a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure that people understand the actual.
Yeah, future videos, we're going to be all about the angles. Alright, so he's dropping down his guy. That looks like the guy that can tap for a white, which is ridiculously good and limited.
Yes. Anything that fixes your mana and excels you is really good. I mean, just go off the bread list. I mean, bombs removal, evasion, acceleration. I mean, evasion's hard to come by, removal's hard to come by, bombs are hard to come by, acceleration becomes pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's understandable. Sometimes in a sealed format, you can pull very little while your opponents seem to pull everything. But good play will usually help you out significantly. Dropping the High Priest now, Tien has a pretty good advantage. The High Priest has this nice morbid ability where if a creature has died this turn, you can tap it and 2 other creatures to put a 5/5 demon into play, which can get out of hand very, very quickly, especially with how small all of James's creatures are. Tien can start trading for one and then putting in much larger guys.
Yeah, it comes into a situation where Tien can just swing with impudence and just, like, you know, attack with anything he wants to and force James to block and make a 5/5. It just becomes a really bad situation for James. And here, I mean, honestly, the best decision for him is to get in there. I mean, you got to get some damage through. I mean, he could have gotten in a little bit of extra damage one turn. That would have really mattered at the end result, I'm sure, because at this point I don't think there's much more damage to be done. But I mean, it's going to be really hard for James to come back here. I mean, there's a few cards that can get him out of it. There's the card that destroys target attacking creature. There's the new pacifism. I mean, there's a few cards that can help him out here.
Yep. And here's
a bad thing.
Yeah, here's a misplay that Tien did, but caught immediately. He was thinking that his creature didn't have summoning sickness, which it did. So he puts in a 2/2 vampire and then puts in a 5/5. And then right now he realizes his error by saying, "Oh, he has summoning sickness," and fix that. Yeah. Last turn was definitely one of the last turns that James could have attacked efficiently and without too much recourse, where Tien could just make a 5/5 and get really good value out of everything. Pretty much, James needs a removal spell and a mass removal spell, or just some larger creatures that are able to block flying, because he's going to get blown out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's just one of those situations where you have few turns to get in the damage that you need to get in, and if you don't take advantage of that, you're going to lose the game. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a really hard thing now, because now Tien can attack with, you know, any ground dudes or any ground creatures, which is great for him because he attacks with every ground creature he has, gets in some damage because James doesn't really have the opportunity to block. I mean, if you block, he makes a 5/5 demon, which you can't deal with either.
Yep, and so that was the first damage James took, so he's sitting at 18. Tien was just trying to bait it so he could get the 5/5, and James is in quite the harder spot right now. Looking at it, he still has his Asp with Death Touch, which is something that I probably would have saved for the flash.
For the prey upon.
Yeah, the prey upon, or just the ability to, if he was swinging out, flash it in. Yeah, the Asp with the Death Touch and Prey Upon is just amazing. It can just instant speed removal something, or not, sorcery speed. Sorcery speed removal something as fast as it possibly can. And being able to take out that Bloodkeeper before it makes a million tokens is really important.
Or even the Highborn. Either one.
The High Priest.
Yeah. High Priest, sorry.
Yeah.
Either one's a good choice. I mean,
yeah.
In this format, especially with the limited removal, I mean, it depends on your tempo. I mean, if you think that killing that 2/2 is going to make a difference, then you might as well do it. But the problem is that once you get to 4th and 5th turn, here's the bombs start coming out. Are you going to be able to deal with those bombs? Mm-hmm. So you need to save that removal that you have, whatever it is, for that, unless you're in a tight spot, obviously. If you're going to lose because you don't play your removal, I mean, obviously you don't want to do that. But.
Yep. And right here, Tien just drew Divine Reckoning. James is completely tapped out. He spent all of his turn trying to dig for an answer using smaller creatures and his Mentor of the Meek. He was able to play something, pay 1, draw a card, pay something, draw a card. So right here, Tien, he's making another vampire. He is going to pay 1 and flip and turn his vampire into a 5/5. And, well, he's thinking about it. There he goes. And it should be pretty much game here with the Divine Reckoning.
Yeah, he pretty much just gets in there for as much damage as he can this turn, and then Divine Reckonings. He has a 5/5 while James has some ground 2/2. It's pretty hard to come back from that point, especially since attacking here will put James to about 4, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that James can't really come back from.
Yeah, especially with the flip, giving all of his other vampires +2/+2. He's swinging with 3 4/4 vampires, a 2/1 first strike flyer, and a 2/2 on the ground.
Yeah, it's 14 damage in the air, which, I mean, there's a lot of choices here on Tien's side. I mean, obviously the safe choice is just a Divine Reckoning, wipe the board from everything besides his 5/5 flyer, and one of James's creatures, but...
Yeah, the only thing past then, I mean, even still... he probably could have waited even a turn and then just attacked with a couple of them and saved it just for in case James had this very large bomb. But there's not a whole lot in those colors in the format that could really deal with it.
Not really. I mean, it makes a vampire return, I think, too.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would have really blew him out is if he had the Inquisitor guy where when he enters the battlefield, he destroys a vampire werewolf or
the Exile one.
Yeah, or the Exile one. Yeah.
There's very few things to come back from this point. I mean, Tien had a couple of options. I mean, at that point, you could make your vampire, morph him into the 5/5, or sorry, flip him into the 5/5, and then attack with your 3 tokens, leaving back some blockers, and just winning in 2 turns. Mm-hmm. The Divine Reckoning, obviously, is kind of the same concept, but it gives a little less of a chance for James to come back at that point, mm-hmm. which is why it's kind of the correct play in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little risky, but it ended up paying off for him this round. But yeah, here is where James concedes, and we should pretty much be done for the video. We'll be looking to do quite a few more of these videos of it, especially doing the finals of most of our tournaments. We run at least 3 tournaments a week, so it should give a good variety of videos. If anybody has any comments or suggestions, we look to being able to for one, get a little bit better setup, a little bit better microphones, as well as, depending on how we get this all formatted, having a good variety of life totals, as well as being able to remember the names of the cards quite a bit more. You can see here there was quite a few packs in the prize pool, and lots of fun. It's thumbs up for everybody.
Yeah, and also the comments help us kind of know what we're doing wrong. I mean, we haven't really done much commentary on things, so I mean, this is kind of a new thing for us to try. And anything you can let us know on what you'd like us to change that's in reason, I mean, we can obviously do that. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'd like to thank everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.